I wonder if there are actual reflection specialists, like people out there who know everything about reflections. All right, so I've had several people ask how I go about painting reflections. I don't really have a method, but I've thought that it could be a good thing to come out and actually take a close look and really study reflections and kind of figure out a method or a plan and then communicate it to you guys, or maybe we'll figure it out together. So anyway, it's a really foggy day here on the coast. Water is really glassy, so we're just going to take a look around and see what we can figure out. Okay, so here's what I've been able to figure out so far. Number one, objects reflected in the water tend to have a closer value range. In other words, the lights are a little bit darker and the darks are a little bit lighter. So everything is closer to a mid-range value. Another thing I've noticed is that objects reflected do pick up a bit of the color of the water itself. In this case, it's kind of green, so there's like a slight green tint to the object when it's reflected. The other thing is when dark objects are reflected, you can kind of see into the water and oftentimes even see to the bottom if possible. And then obviously there are no straight lines unless the water is just like completely glassy. Lines tend to wobble, and then also the edges of shapes tend to kind of wobble too. All right, some reflections like this almost look like they're painted already, just using sort of vertical blurry strokes. I'm just over the hill from Mavericks, which is like a really famous surf spot, monstrous like 30 or 40 foot waves when there's storms. It's like a sea urchin and vertebrae from a fish, maybe? Today is turning into a day of observation and not much painting. It's really kind of nice, actually. Look at that color. Are you kidding me? Talk about color, check out this mussel shell. I find it fascinating that the insides of these shells are so colorful. Yeah, I'm not sure what purpose that serves. If anyone knows, let me know in the comments. Okay, so I'm going to tone the panel with burnt sienna because the scene is kind of a lot of blues and greens. It's a pretty cool, the temperature is pretty cool. So by toning the canvas here, or the panel, then I'm gonna have some little pops of warmth. I just thinned the burnt sienna with some mineral spirits, and then I just kind of, as you saw, I just sort of paint it on and then wipe it off so that it's almost dry. There'll still be a thin film on there. All right, I'm gonna try to work fast. This is a 7 by 11.5 panel, just some random piece of masonite that I had. All right, and the horizon's gonna be about here. This is gonna be a very abstract sort of painting because the subject matter is just so complicated, and then on such a small panel, it'll be kind of fun to see if I can keep it very abstract. And what I'll do is I'm going to squint at it, squint at the subject just to kind of really reduce it down to the simplest forms. So basically here I have the horizon, there's like some hills here, and then I'm not even going to get into details about the boats. I mean, they're kind of in this area right here. There's a little bit of a reflection here. And I'm just going to look at all of the, right now I'm just looking at the reflection shapes just as kind of large shapes. Okay, that's all I really need to get started. Maybe I'll delineate the back end of the boat so that I know I at least have that. I'm going to put some of the rigging in, not much, just a few suggestions to give me like kind of a roadmap as to where I am. Again, it doesn't really matter. I'm looking to have kind of, you know, some interest in this area right here, using, you know, the rule of thirds, putting kind of this, you know, the center of interest right about here. I'm squinting and just looking at dark, pretty much just dark shapes. I think that's the only way I'm going to be able to pull this off. But it's just a jumble. How can anyone possibly sort that out? Painting this small is definitely challenging. Okay, that should be darker. So the water, where it's reflecting the sky, so all this blue area, it's much lighter the further away you are, and then as you get, you know, as it gets closer to you, in other words, the water in the foreground gets a darker blue. So I'm going to go in and kind of lighten up the areas that are further away, that are reflecting more sky, if that makes sense. I've never done a subject like this because it's always been kind of just looked like a nightmare, but that was before I started looking at things completely as an abstract sort of exercise, which really changes everything. Because I'm just kind of looking at its shapes of color. So in that way, honestly, complicated subject matter is probably a good thing, because it can really make you, it'll make you focus on exactly that, just not focusing on drawing the specific things. I'm rambling because my mind is in overdrive here, but hopefully you guys know what I'm trying to say. You guys know what I'm getting at. And the other thing that's nice about it is there is so much jumble that, you know, especially with a small panel like this, it would take somebody forever just to kind of figure out what's what. I'm going to make those hills in the back. I debated as to whether to paint in the hills in the background first and then put the mast over, which probably wouldn't have been a bad idea, but whatever. I'm definitely going to paint the sky around the masts. I'm not using any medium, so that's kind of making, I mean, the paint's going on kind of thick. And I'll get as much of it done with a fairly large brush. I mean, large for this subject matter and this size panel. I'm eliminating that row of boats back there just because it's a bit much. You know, I'd rather use this brush all the way through and not break out a tiny one. I don't know if I'll be able to do that, but... Okay, so I'm discovering things as I go along here, and it seems like the most visible things are the little pops of color. So I'm just kind of looking for where those are within this, you know, within this jumble, and hoping that maybe some of these pops of color will help sort of define things a little bit. This is all an experiment. We're in uncharted territory here. At least I am. Restate some darks here. Okay, the mountains in the background are strangely kind of more of like a blue-green. So I kind of messed up the color on those. I'm going to redo that. I don't know why that is, but they are. And then they get pretty light as they go over here. And also towards the tops of them, there's fog rolling over them, so. Okay, now that I've got everything in place, I can sort of start playing with, you know, tuning it up or putting some lines in there that make it look more like, you know, like boats. But again, I'm going to keep with this big brush so that I don't get too precious with it. Okay, so I'll do some touch-ups, but I'm going to leave it like this for now. Alright, so that panel was entirely too small for that kind of subject matter. There's a lot going on. I'd like to do it on a bigger canvas, and probably will. I like the composition and everything, but I did still have fun, and it was cool to be able to employ some of the things I learned about reflections today. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys in the next one.